This conference will now be recorded.
So in the previous class we saw about fungal infections and what are the types of organisms which cause fungal infections, and like other microorganisms, the infections caused by fungal organisms are not very deep-seated or deep-rooted. They are not much of a threat to life, but of course they are very uncomfortable. We then classified the antifungal agents based on their mechanism of action, and and also based on their chemical structure. Like we have allylamines, which show antifungal activity. We also have the azole classes. There are two subclasses in the azole rings which show good antifungal activity. We have also seen the SAR of azole azole antifungal agents, as well as allyl antifungal agents. We now move on to the next class of antifungal agents, and the class is the antifungal antibiotics. So these are basically antibiotics which have shown good activity against fungal microorganisms which cause the fungal infection. Now the need for this class of antifungal antibiotics was felt because every time the azoles or the allylamines could not be used or were not seen to be effective in some or very few deep-seated or deep-rooted fungal infections. It is in the first place very rare that a fungal infection can become a systemic infection. Initially, most of the drugs which were used as antifungal agents, they were benzoic acid, salicylic acid, which were used topically, and most of the times fungal infections are found to be existing topically, breeding on the keratin and on the dermis and the epidermal layer of the skin. However, sometimes the fungal infection does reach into the system, and for such deep seated or deep rooted fungal infections, these Pauline antibiotics were designed. So these Pauline antibiotics, we have two examples, amphotericin B and nystatin. Both of them fall into this Pauline antibiotic classes, which can be used for deep seated fungal infections. Now, if you see the structure of amphotericin B as well as nystatin, which is visible to you on your screen, you will see that the drug is categorically divided into hydrophilic region and the lipophilic region. So this part where you see the sugar over here in case of nystatin, or here in the case of amphotericin B, both these parts are the lipophilic parts. Okay, and the series of carbon chain that you see after that, where a series of double bonds are visible to us along with OH group also, this part is what is called as the lipophilic part. So this class of drugs or these antifungal agents have a well balanced lipophilic as well as hydrophilic property to help them penetrate into all the different types of membranes and reach the deep seated fungal infection, and in turn then penetrate into the fungal cell to give its antifungal activity. If you see the mechanism of action of these classes of antifungal agents, then this is how the cell wall of the fungus looks, which means there is a lipid bilayer membrane, and in this lipid bilayer membrane there is a ergosterol, or there is a sterol which is incorporated into it. Now what these Pauline antibiotics do is they create a pore or a hole into this ergosterol or into this sterol structure. Now, when a hole is created into this ergosterol structure or in this sterol structure, all the cell constituents which are present inside this lipid bilayer cell membrane, they all will leak out. and because of this leaking out of the cell constituents or cell contents of the fungal cell, there is death of the fungus. So this is the way in which these Pauline antifungal antibiotics act. So this is, you can take down the structure of nystatin as well as of amphotericin B, and you can also make note that these are macrolytic lactones, and the hydrophilic region and the lipophilic region in the drug is clearly defined, and both the hydrophilic as well as the lipophilic regions are coupled with each other through a conjugated system. That is why they are called as Pauline. The conjugated system is the ene system, means there are double bonds. You can see over here that there are double bonds all across. Okay, so this hydrophilic and this lipophilic structure is joined through these double bonds, which you can see on the screen, and that is why they are called as Pauline antibiotics, because there is a conjugate ene system of double bonds which is responsible for joining the hydrophilic and the lipophilic region with each other. They are also used for topical infections, but most preferably they are used for deep-seated fungal infections. And like I said, that the lipophilic region contains a series of or several conjugated double bonds, while the hydrophilic region contains alcohol, hydroxyl group, and this sugar moiety. And the mechanism of action, once again, I shall repeat that they cause a pore formation in the ergosterol structure. Ergosterol is the sterol which is present in the lipid bilayer membrane of the fungal cell. Now, in the case of humans, instead of ergosterol over here, we have cholesterol. So this pore formation will not happen in the case of mammalian cell, or will not happen in the case of human cell. So this is about antifungal antibiotics or Pauline antibiotics. They have both fungistatic as well as fungicidal action, depend upon the dose of the antifungal agent that you are using, and they are widely used in treating vaginitis that is caused by Candida albicans, a deep-seated vaginal fungal infection. So from here we move on to the next class of or the last class of antifungal agents, and the last class of antifungal agents are the antimetabolite nucleosides. If you see the example on your screen right now of flucytosine, you should immediately be reminded of a particular anti-metabolite or an anti-cancer anti-metabolite which we have studied in the previous semester. Okay, the both that drug and this drug are structurally similar. If you have been able to recollect, this drug which is on your screen right now, flucytosine, is structurally related to 5-fluorouracil, which was an antimetabolite anti-cancer agent that we have studied in the previous semester. So this flucytosine is having antifungal activity, and in vitro it exists as flucytosine, but in vivo when it goes, it is acted upon by the cytosine permease enzyme, and in the presence of this enzyme permease, it is cytosine deaminase, it is converted from flucytosine to fluorouracil, which means there is flucytosine. With the help of cytosine permease, it penetrates into the body, and in the cell, the cytosine deaminase enzyme is present. Now, this cytosine deaminase enzyme is present in bacteria as well as fungi, and this cytosine deaminase enzyme will convert this flucytosine to 5-fluorouracil. Now, once it gets converted to 5-fluorouracil, it acts as the inhibitor for the thymidylate synthetase enzyme, and it is by inhibiting or by stopping the action of this thymidylate synthetase enzyme, it is acting as a anti-metabolite. It is not going to allow the formation of proteins, or it is not going to allow the formation of RNA. That means the biosynthesis of RNA and the synthesis of protein, both is going to be inhibited, because it is going to be acting as a thymidylate synthetase inhibitor. So this is the action of this anti-metabolite nucleoside flucytosine, which is structurally related to 5-fluorouracil. The last drug of this class of antifungal agents is griseofulvin, more having a fungistatic activity as compared to fungicidal activity. Griseofulvin is going to act by binding to the microtubules comprising of spindles, and it is going to inhibit mitosis. So when mitosis is inhibited, the cell division, which is in metaphase, if you recollect the steps of mitosis, there is a step called as metaphase. This metaphase is going to get arrested, or it is going to stop, and this is going to not let the fungal cell grow further. Now, many a times it is seen when there is a fungal infection, there is a thick layer, which is formed on the skin. I'm talking about the superficial fungal infections, a thick skin layer which is very rough to touch, and you feel very uncomfortable even to see it. It is very dark in color, and it causes a lot of itching sensation. So here, um, if you want to get rid of that, griseofulvin is of great use. What griseofulvin will do is it will cause exfoliation of this particular tissue or the skin layer which has been formed. Slowly exfoliation will stop, and keratin will be incorporated into the cells, into the skin cells gradually, and a normal skin layer will start forming on the place where you were suffering from a fungal infection. Okay, so this is one extra advantage of using griseofulvin. It is not only having fungistatic activity, it is also acting as an exfoliating agent for the development of new tissue and replacing this new tissue with keratin at the site of fungal infection. Penicillin was obtained from Penicillium notatum, griseofulvin is obtained from Penicillium griseofulvum. So the first time griseofulvin was isolated, it was isolated from this mold called as Penicillium griseofulvum, and then later its structural analysis was done, and then now we are able to synthesize griseofulvin in the lab. Griseofulvin has very good lipophilic property. It is highly lipophilic in nature, and its oral bioavailability also is very high. So in case you are looking at treating infections which are deep seated, fungal infections which are deep seated, you also could use griseofulvin. It has good oral bioavailability also. So you can use it for systemic treatment. You can also use it for tinea infections, refractory ringworm infections, especially which occur at nails or hair or feet. I told you that in between the toes of the feet, many a times people suffer from fungal infections, tenial worm infections. In those cases, you can use griseofulvin, and it is very typical or characteristic of tinea worm infections or dermatophytosis that there is a rough layer formed, which is very ugly to look at, and it is very rough to touch, and you can easily make out that the person is suffering from fungal infection. So to replace and to rejuvenate the skin, to exfoliate it, and to incorporate keratin, griseofulvin is a very good choice of antifungal agent which can be used for the treatment. Other than dermatophytosis, it can be also used in the treatment of fungal infections caused by trichotons, microsporums, and epidermophytons. So this is all about griseofulvin. The drugs which we have seen today are amphotericin B and nystatin, which are Pauline antibiotics. I told you why they are called as Pauline antibiotics. Then we have seen the lipophilic and the hydrophilic part of these drugs. Both of them have the hydrophilic and lipophilic part, and they are joined with each other through the series of in conjugated system, and that's why they are called as Pauline antibiotics. Their mechanism of action is very simple. They are go attack the ergosterol, and when they are going to attack the ergosterol, they are going to cause a pore formation, which is going to lead to the leakage of cell constituents of the fungus. Then we have seen the antimetabolites, which are acting as antifungal agents. Flucytosine is an antimetabolite. It is structurally or chemically related to 5-fluorouracil. It is going to permeate into the fungal cell with the help of cytosine permease. In the fungal cell, there is presence of cytokinase enzyme, which is going to convert flucytosine to 5-fluorouracil. And once it converts to 5-fluorouracil, it is going to act as a thymidylate synthetase enzyme inhibitor, thus inhibiting protein formation as well as RNA synthesis, giving antimetabolite antifungal activity. The last drug we saw just now was of griseofulvin. Another synthesis that is recommended in your syllabus is that of tolnaftate. You can quickly take down the procedure for the synthesis of tolnaftate, where naphthol is combining with thiophosgene, and the end product, in the presence of N-methyl-3-toluidine, you get the drug tolnaftate. Okay, so with this we complete the topic of antifungal agents.